World, welcome to another installment of Fractal Radio, the official vlog podcast of the Fractal Journal. So, today, it's very warm here in the armpit, known as the southeastern United States. It's actually 90 degrees, and there's some kind of storm incoming, apparently, off the coast here. But, if you'd like me to be more modest, go ahead and throw a couple of dollars my way in my Patreon. I'm kidding. But really, what this is all about, since it's so hot, is goddamn hot air. What I like to call Pundits Disease or Commentators Disease. And what this disease is really talking about vague notions that don't really take into account the parameters of a problem. It's fine to talk about principles and pulling yourself up by your bootstraps or equality, whatever spectrum you happen to lean towards. However, the applications of those principles in day-to-day situation is oftentimes very, very different. And I feel that pundits and commentators and the people that are supposed to help carry our public discourse forward professionally do a really piss-poor job of understanding the ins and outs of the average person's life. Okay, so vague notions. Why don't they really work? What am I talking about? Okay, for instance, bootstrapping. Pulling yourself up by your bootstraps. Good notion to have. An independent spirit trying to take care of yourself is a good notion to put forward. But if you're working an exhausting job at a warehouse, or you're on a construction site, or you're doing something psychologically draining like a bunch of paperwork with TPS reports and that stereotypical thing in an office, you're exhausted at the end of the day and you're not getting adequately compensated. You can't go out and really bootstrap. And if you do, you're putting yourself in a situation where, especially if you have a family, you might be pretty much screwed and further thrown down the debt chute. So yes, you should always be trying to improve yourself, but the application of that in real life, very under-discussed, and in favor of that, what's put forward is a lot of oorah cheerleading. The corollary is that kind of lefty make everything equal and put forward these notions that feel really good to trumpet forth like the equality of women and minorities and things, which, look, it's good to try to level the playing field in terms of making it a fair competition, but you can't make everything absolutely equal because people aren't absolutely equal. And the reason that people do this, I feel like, has less to do with them having some kind of necessarily ulterior motive, although maybe in some cases it is. I think it has more to do with the fact that it feels good trying to promote the underdog. And what that causes to happen is there's a range of pet issues that people really focus on a small little smidgen of that problem, and that dwarfs the big background issues that run so much deeper. And this is not just with the social justice crowd, it's with that first kind of libertarian crowd that I'm talking about as well. To give kind of a concrete example of this, you know how global warming and climate change is a big to-do. And fine, the climate always changes, and we might be contributing a lot to it. But that being said, there's a host of other environmental issues that just get dwarfed by this. And a fellow at the USGS, being interviewed by either Alex Pradome or Fred Pierce, one of the fellows whose books I read about water, he said that this issue dwarfs really big ones like the nitrification of the Chesapeake Bay, where basically algal blooms grow in the bay, killing off the fish and stuff because it's a big interaction that causes huge environmental impacts, and it's rarely talked about because all of the pundits are blowing their hot air about stuff that appeals to them and makes them feel morally superior. And even if that's not the case, even if I'm attaching a motive and being, ungenerous with my assessment here, let's take the generous assessment that the most generous assessment I can really give in this case is that these are the issues that are in the zeitgeist and therefore garner attention, but we need to try to get to things that actually are affecting daily lives, like dwindling fish populations and the inability to support a family even though you're doing a bunch of grueling frigging labor. And yes, there are pundits that do that, But even them, they always seem to veer off into this direction. And to me, it all has to do with something they call experiential inputs. They don't have them anymore, or they haven't had them for a while because they sit in a comfortable studio and are basically a talking head. You know how they say politicians are out of touch? Pundits are out of touch. And this is whether they're dependent or independent, because in the independent case, I've noticed even with people I love, they're basically just nerds who haven't worked in a warehouse or done something for the longest time. And so they just pontificate about bootstrapping and entrepreneurism, and that's fine. Those are good things to do, but you have to understand the context in which it happens, and if you're going to promote those things, you have to take the onus on yourself to really lay out all of the challenges with that. Make that a focus of your podcasts and things instead of just talking about these vague nostrums. Okay, I've had enough. Thanks so much for listening. Hit that stupid thumbs up button, subscribe, click the bell so you get the notifications, help the channel grow, all that happy horseshit. Take care, folks.